Hey, I'm John of John Lacey 83, and I want to show you how I made this backsplash, and you can too. They're pretty easy. So the first thing you're going to need is your backsplash material, and then you're going to need something to stick it to, which I used 3/16 plywood because it's thin, it's cheap. So for the dimensions of the backboard, you're just going to want to cover up the foam board for something to stick on. So you don't want to make them too big to where they show or stick out from the backsplash material. I kept them about a 1/4 inch short on the height on the top so that they wouldn't be visible. And then once you get those cut, put them in place and check them, make sure they're right. And then the next thing you want to do is to very accurate, as accurately as you can do it, measure the standoff holes. The standoffs are those little tubes that Kimbo uses to hold the foam board in place to the aluminum body. You're going to put a different type screw in there. You're going to want a beveled head screw that you're able to countersink. You're going to want those holes as accurate as you can get them, and then I would write them directly onto, transfer them onto the plywood board using the same edges, measuring from the same edges as you did to get your dimensions on the foam board, and then write them directly onto the plywood and take a picture of it. And then you've got a record of where those holes are. If later you need to, for some reason, to access the holes through your backsplash. So once you have your holes drilled into the plywood, and those holes are going to need to be a 3/16 diameter drill bit, and then you're going to want to countersink the holes so that your beveled screws you're going to have to purchase will sit down flush with the plywood. You don't want them sticking out or protruding out from the plywood, or it's going to cause a bump in your backsplash material. So definitely want to get those down sunk into the wood. You can use a countersink drill, or you can use just a larger drill bit that's about the size or maybe even a little bit bigger than the diameter of the screw head. But be very careful that you don't go all the way through the plywood. You're not dealing with very thick materials, so you don't have a lot to work with there. Just take your time, be careful. Watch out for the bit grabbing and pulling the plywood up into the bit. That's always a problem. If you have a press, a drill press, that's makes it a little easier. And then once you have everything drilled and cut and ready to go, put in your countersink screws. And I like to keep I use the hex heads whenever I can, and I try really hard. And it's not very hard actually. It seems like a common size, but I try to use the 1/8 inch hex head. I found this one online. I keep it in my Kimbo because it works on all the hex heads that came with the Kimbo and the new ones I put in. So I recommend that. That way it's easy to work on. Anyway, and then starts the fun part. You get to stick the sticky stuff on. Just be super careful when you do it. Some of that stuff is incredibly strong, and once it gets a good grip on the plywood, it's not going to be moved. You can't correct yourself, so take your time. Backsplash I use is an aluminum, very thin aluminum coated. I don't know what those are, little plastic squares, and so I was able to cut it with a straight edge and a razor knife, and just take your time, be careful, and measure twice, cut once, as they say. Don't peel any more off of the material than you need to get it started, and then that way you won't accidentally touch it to the plywood and never move it again. And then once everything's stuck in place, if you have a roller, roll it, push, give it a lot of good firm pushing to get it set onto the plywood, and enjoy.